Look, I did not want to be the one to tell you this, but you're drafting the wrong wide receivers in 2025 fantasy football. Today, I'm showing you the top 36 wide receiver rankings heading into your draft season. That's going to help us win our fantasy leagues. We do not have time to waste. Let's hop right into our top tier, and that is going to be Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb at 1 and 2. We don't need to talk about Jamar Chase. He dominated last season for the Cincinnati Bengals with Joe Burrow. But CeeDee Lamb, over the past 2 seasons, when Dak Prescott has been healthy, he's been the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football. With Dak Prescott coming back healthy this season, I expect CeeDee to join Jamar Chase atop the landscape of the wide receiver position. A very safe first-round pick. My next 2 wide receivers, Puka Nacua and Justin Jefferson, both having some training camp injury concerns. Puka Nacua, it's going to be with his quarterback, Matt Stafford, dealing with a back injury. I am still drafting Puka Nacua very highly. While playing last season, he had the highest yards per route run in the NFL. I believe Matt Stafford will be healthy this season. Let's not forget, years ago in Detroit, the guy dislocated his shoulder, still plays in the game and throws a game-winning touchdown pass. The guy's going to play through anything. I'm very high on Puka Nacua. At number 4, I do have Justin Jefferson. He's dealing with his own injury, his hamstring bothering him. We saw him deal with some hamstring problems a couple seasons ago. They say he's going to be healthy for week 1. I'm not avoiding Justin Jefferson by any means, but the injury just gives me enough of a concern to move him below Puka Nacua, as I am confident at this moment that Matt Stafford is going to be good to go this year. My wide receiver 5 in fantasy football is going to be Nico Collins. I'm extremely high on Nico Collins. I think the possibilities in Houston, vacated targets in Houston are no secret. Tank Dell out for the season. Stephon Diggs now playing in New England, of course. They bring in some rookie wide receivers, but they cannot contend with Nico Collins. And we might have an absence of a run game in Houston with the fact that Joe Mixon's dealing with an injury and Nick Chubb apparently looks to be toast in training camp. I think this Texans offense might have to rely on CJ Stroud and Nico Collins in the passing game. For a guy that finished as wide receiver 7 on a points per game basis last year when dealing with Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell, I think Nico Collins can easily step into the top 5 this upcoming season. At wide receivers 6 and 7, it's going to be some PPR demons, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Malik Nabers. This Lions offense, while Ben Johnson does depart for Chicago, still think it's going to be a top 5 unit in the league. I have no problem drafting Amon-Ra St. Brown at the back end of the first round. One of the safer picks in fantasy football, but he might have to deal with Jameson Williams becoming a breakout wide receiver. He's on a great trajectory. If JMO can eat in an Amon-Ra's target share, we could see a low-end wide receiver 1 finish for St. Brown as opposed to a mid wide receiver 1 finish like we've seen in years past. Malik Nabers is going to be my wide receiver 7. I'm a little worried about the offense in New York with Malik Nabers. Yes, he was peppered with 170 targets as a rookie, which is an absurd amount given the fact that Daniel Jones was his quarterback last year. But I am not convinced that Russell Wilson is going to be able to lead a profitable offense in New York. If this is a bottom 5 offense like the projections would indicate, I don't exactly see the ceiling for Malik Nabers to crack into the top 5 outside of PPR formats. In half PPR and standard leagues, I think you need to strongly consider moving Malik down to the bottom of this wide receiver 1 tier. But in your PPR leagues, he is going to garner an absurd amount of targets. Next at wide receiver 8, I have Malik Nabers' college teammate at LSU, Brian Thomas Jr. If you're convinced that Travis Hunter is going to play majority snaps at cornerback this year, you can move Brian Thomas Jr. up into the middle of this tier. But word out of Jacksonville is that Travis Hunter is going to play around 80% of the snaps on offense, while BTJ should work as a dominant X receiver on the outside for Trevor Lawrence. I think Travis Hunter is going to get a lot of work, even on 80% of the offensive snaps. That'll limit Brian Thomas's upside, become the wide receiver 1 overall in fantasy. Drake London and A.J. Brown will round out this tier for me. Drake London, the last 3 games with Michael Penix were absurd, over 23 fantasy points per game. Small sample size, 3 games at the end of the regular season, so we're not projecting that for a full season this year. Otherwise, he'd be in tier 1 with CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase. But I think you do have to be more excited with Drake London this year with Michael Penix than you were last year with Kirk Cousins. Penix just shows an ability to throw the ball downfield that Kirk Cousins did not have. And I think that's where the upside in this Atlanta Falcons offense is going to reside, with Drake London down the field like we saw in the final 3 games of the 2024 season. And A.J. Brown will cap off my top 10 wide receivers. Yes, Philadelphia is an extremely run-heavy offense. The passing volume might not be there for A.J. Brown, but he's still one of the most talented wide receivers in the National Football League, and I expect the Eagles to pass slightly more this season. I mean, they literally can't pass any less than they did last year. They're the most run-heavy team in all of football. Saquon Barkley took a beating last year. I expect those touches to come down slightly, and I think the passing volume ticks up, and that favors A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. 2 second-year wide receivers will be my wide receivers 11 and 12, Ladd McConkey and Marvin Harrison Jr. There was an argument to have McConkey in Tier 2. I did drop him down into Tier 3. Didn't move him behind Marvin Harrison Jr. after the Keenan Allen signing, but did knock him into Tier 3. I don't think Keenan Allen is going to be competing with Ladd's targets by any means. He's still going to be the focal point of this offense. But introducing Keenan Allen, a guy that has chemistry with Justin Herbert, I think you do have to at least slightly move Ladd down, but I'm not panicking by any means over the standout rookie wide receiver in Los Angeles. Marvin Harrison Jr. at number 12. I'm a little higher on Marvin Harrison Jr. than other people are. I'm not panicking after the rookie season that he displayed last year. While it wasn't a top 12 fantasy wide receiver season in his rookie year like people were projecting, still a very solid year for him. His numbers were very similar to CeeDee Lamb's rookie years and his own father's, Marvin Harrison Sr.'s rookie season. So I don't want to panic over a rookie year where the chemistry with Kyler Murray just didn't look right. This Arizona Cardinals offense is projected to be a top 10 unit this upcoming season. And if they're going to score a ton of points, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a part of that. Jackson Smith and Jigba and T. Higgins will be my wide receivers 13 and 14. JSN finally getting an opportunity to be the wide receiver 1 on his team, dealing with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett for the first 2 years of his career. I don't think Cooper Kupp plays a huge factor on this team. We saw Puka Nacua work as the wide receiver 1 in Los Angeles at the end of Kupp's tenure there, and I think JSN is going to do the exact same thing. He should be in line to be Sam Darnold's number 1 target. And T. Higgins, it's not much to say here. The Bengals are a great offense. Joe Burrow is going to pass the ball nonstop with that terrible defense. If he stays healthy, he's going to be a great player in fantasy. My next 3 wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, and Terry McLaurin, all veteran wide receivers nearing the end of their careers, at least in Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams' case. All news coming out of Miami, not very good for Tyreek Hill. I've been hearing people putting Tyreek Hill inside their top 10 wide receivers this season. I can't get there, just the fact that we've seen at age 31, for a guy who relies so heavily on his speed. We just saw his numbers deteriorate last year. People want to blame the absence of Tua Tagovailoa for Tyreek's struggles, but he was still only wide receiver 20 when Tua Tagovailoa was healthy. Now you add an extra year of age to him. I don't see a top 5 upside for Tyreek Hill. Devontae Adams in Los Angeles now with Matthew Stafford. He's probably going to have a very high target share inside the red zone. But at age 32, I think the decline is coming for Devontae Adams. But enough of a role in a good offense, you can take him as wide receiver 2. And Terry McLaurin, this just comes down to contract. The longer this holdout situation goes for Terry McLaurin, the lower you're going to have to move him down your rankings. He's requesting a trade, but the Commanders obviously not interested in trading him at the moment. The fact that they're in a Super Bowl window with superstar quarterback Jaden Daniels. While I am optimistic he plays for the Commanders in Week 1, the closer we get to the season without him on the practice field, you do have to be more concerned. My next wide receiver, DK Metcalf at wide receiver 18. I'm obviously higher on DK Metcalf than most people are, but who else is Aaron Rodgers going to throw the football to? There's nobody else on this depth chart. Maybe the Steelers bring in a guy. They were rumored to be interested in trading for Terry McLaurin, but like we talked about, that's probably not going to happen. While it wasn't great for Aaron Rodgers in New York last year, he was still able to almost throw 30 touchdown passes. In the last 6 games of the regular season, Devontae Adams was able to score 6 touchdowns, averaging a touchdown each game for that New York Jets offense. I think DK Metcalf is going to play that Devontae Adams role for Rodgers. If Devontae at age 31 can get it done with Rodgers, I think DK Metcalf can provide similar red zone upside given the size and speed that he possesses. My next 3 wide receivers, Rashee Rice, Courtland Sutton, and Devontae Smith. 3 very different wide receivers. When it comes to Rashee Rice, I profile him to be the number 1 wide receiver option in Kansas City. We've seen him be a wide receiver 1 when healthy, not only in 2024, but at the end of 2023. It's all going to come down to what the suspension is. If he gets suspended for 2 to 3 games, I'm okay with taking him in this tier. If it's going to be more like 4 to 8 games, at that point, you definitely have to move him down your rankings. Courtland Sutton at wide receiver 20. Once he and Bo Nix got rolling at the end of the season, the guy was putting up a touchdown almost every week. Sutton, year in and year out, is one of the most underrated wide receivers. And in Sean Payton's offense, where we've seen him deliver top 12 fantasy options at the wide receiver positions consistently. We saw how many years Michael Thomas was a league-winning player. Now, Courtland Sutton's not going to put up anywhere near that with Bo Nix. But behind a top-ranked offensive line, Bo Nix has every opportunity in the world to succeed, and I think Courtland Sutton's clearly the best option on the outside for him. And Devontae Smith at wide receiver 21. Eagles offense is going to be amazing yet again. They were the most run-heavy team of recent memory. We talked about it with A.J. Brown. Even with that, Devontae Smith was still a top 20 wide receiver on a points-per-game basis. I see no world in where he finishes outside the top 24. So with a potential uptick in the passing volume, I will have him inside my top 24 wide receivers at wide receiver 21. Garrett Wilson, I have at wide receiver 22. I'm low on Garrett Wilson. I'm probably not going to be drafting him a lot this year. New York was a bad offense last year with Aaron Rodgers. Now Justin Fields is the quarterback. While I think Fields provides value, it's for a much different reason than what we expect through the passing attack. I think Garrett Wilson's ceiling is severely capped in a low volume, low efficiency passing attack with Justin Fields. Now, somebody I am higher on, Teteroa McMillan. Guy looks like a dominant X-wide receiver. Bryce Young looked to be better at the end of last year. Let's not forget, Bryce Young was a former #1 overall pick, and he finally gets an alpha wide receiver. Teteroa looked good in the preseason game with Bryce Young. I think he could be the next breakout rookie wide receiver in fantasy. Mike Evans will round up my top 24 wide receivers. The guy provides 1,000 receiving yards and a bunch of touchdowns each and every year. But I think at age 32, we do have to be concerned, and they bring in Emeka Egbuka, who's been getting a ton of buzz out of training camp. Now, a couple wide receiver twos I'm excited to draft this year, and I think Goose is as well behind me. It's Jameson Williams, George Pickens, and Travis Hunter. 3 wide receiver twos. Travis Hunter might be the #1 wide receiver by the end of the season. These are 3 really good wide receivers in really good offenses. The Lions, Cowboys, and Jaguars, I expect this year with new head coach Liam Cohen coming from Tampa Bay. I expect these offenses to be really good, and I want to be getting as much a part of these passing attacks that I can. And around this tier out, I have Calvin Ridley. Cam Ward might be the perfect fit for Calvin Ridley, who led the league in air yards last year. Cam Ward, the #1 ranked deep ball passer in college football last year. I think it's a match made in heaven there. And around out my top 36 wide receivers, Xavier Worthy, Jalen Waddle, Stephon Diggs, Ricky Pearsall, Zay Flowers, and Rome Odunze. Rashee Rice gets suspended for 4 to 8 games. I think you move Xavier Worthy up in these rankings, but I'm not expecting as big of a breakout as some others are, given the fact that Worthy was a top 40 wide receiver through the first 15 weeks of the regular season. He gets some added work later in the year, but this Kansas City offense had literally no one left standing. Pacheco was out with the leg injury. Rice had been down with the injury he sustained earlier in the year. Travis Kelce is washed at this point, and Hollywood Brown dealing with injuries of his own. All these players look to be back this year. We have to monitor Rice's suspension and Hollywood Brown dealing with an injury this offseason as well. But if this team is able to get fully healthy, I don't see Xavier Worthy's ceiling. Jalen Waddle next. This Miami Dolphins team didn't look quite right last year. I have some concerns there, but he's so talented, it's worth taking a shot on him in the middle rounds. And Stephon Diggs coming off an ACL tear. All the reports are that he's doing exceptionally well, already practicing with the team. If he's good to go week 1, I think a Drake May breakout season is inbound, and he's going to be a big part of that. But my favorite wide receiver, league-winning player to draft this year is Ricky Pearsall. All the question marks in San Francisco with Jawan Jennings' injury, Brandon Ayuk most likely not playing in week 1, and Christian McCaffrey dealing with different injuries each and every year, basically. Ricky Pearsall's a first-round wide receiver that's heading into year 2, where we saw a very productive final stretch of the 2024 season. If Brock Purdy establishes some chemistry with Ricky Pearsall early, this could be the best pick in all of fantasy. I'm very high on Ricky Pearsall, the second-year wideout. And my last 2 guys at wide receiver 35 and 36, Zay Flowers and Rome Odunze. Zay Flowers in a year where Lamar Jackson threw for 41 touchdown passes and over 4,000 passing yards, still finished outside the top 30 wide receivers. I just don't know where the upside comes for Zay Flowers, for a guy that doesn't have a big red zone role. This team relies on Derrick Henry at the goal line. DeAndre Hopkins is a good red zone threat, and obviously Mark Andrews is going to play a role down there. Well, Zay Flowers is a great real-life wide receiver. I think similar to Xavier Worthy, I don't think it translates into fantasy, even in a good Baltimore offense. And Rome Odunze, people are excited about his year 2 season as well, but year 1 was very disappointing, and this team goes out, adds Luther Burden and Colston Loveland in the draft. While I expect this Bears team to be better this year, they are coming from the 32nd best, also known as the absolutely worst offense in the NFL last year, so a tough hill to climb for Odunze this upcoming season, but that's going to be my top 36 wide receivers. Let me know where I went wrong here. I know not everyone's going to agree with this, but these are how I'm drafting currently heading into my fantasy football drafts. There's still a long way to go until we hit the start of the NFL regular season, but hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more fantasy football content. That's good, dude. Here. We'll see you guys next week with another episode of Fantasy Birds.